Lyra drifted silently along the high terraces of Luminaris, the city that floated like a jewel above the clouds of Erythra. The towers of the royal district glittered in the light of three suns, their glass spires cutting sharp lines into the sky. The air hummed with energy, powered by hidden currents of technology, and small flying vehicles zipped between the buildings like swarms of metallic insects. Yet despite the beauty, Lyra felt confined. Born into the highest ranks of alien nobility, she was expected to follow every rule, every law, and every ritual laid down by the council. Every day was a mirror of the last, filled with lectures on etiquette, reports on interstellar politics, and the endless scrutiny of her family and advisors. But today she did not want lectures. Today she wanted to see something real, something unfiltered, something human. She slipped through the side gates and descended into the lower city, a place where the towers were shorter, the streets crowded with market stalls, and the scent of alien spices mixed with the faint tang of the clouds below. This district was alive, messy, and vibrant, nothing like the polished perfection of her palace. It was where humans lived, and humans fascinated her. They were small, fragile creatures by alien standards, but there was something in their energy, something unpredictable, that made them dangerous in a way she admired. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the streets, watching the humans go about their business. Children played in narrow alleys, their laughter echoing against walls of brick and steel. Vendors shouted their wares, moving quickly as if time itself could run out at any moment. And then she saw him. He was bending over a child who had tripped on the uneven pavement, carefully helping the small figure to their feet. His movements were precise, quick, yet gentle. His hair, dark and unruly, fell across his forehead, and his brown eyes shone with a mixture of concern and determination. Lyra felt her heart beat faster. There was a calm courage in him that even the bravest nobles she knew did not possess. She watched as the child ran off to join their friends, and the man straightened. He looked around, noticing the busy market streets, but his attention seemed grounded in the moment, not in fear of the crowd or the dangers that lurked in the lower city. Lyra could not look away. A sudden shout drew her attention. A sky rail above the street had malfunctioned, a passenger car tilting dangerously over the edge. Without hesitation, the human leapt forward. Lyra held her breath as he calculated the fall, grabbing the rail and pulling the car slightly back onto the track. Sparks flew, metal groaning under the strain, but he held fast, his small body straining against the weight. Within moments, a group of other humans joined him, steadying the car until it was safe. Lyra gasped softly. No noble in her world would risk themselves in such a manner unless it was for glory or gain. This human risked himself for strangers, for children. His courage was raw, instinctive, and it mesmerized her. She stepped closer, almost forgetting to be cautious. In the shadows of the marketplace, no one noticed her, her violet hair and alien features hidden beneath a cloak. She watched him, studying every detail. When he finally walked away, brushing soot from his hands, she followed at a careful distance. His small home was modest, tucked away between two larger buildings. Smoke curled from a single chimney, and a faint hum of machinery indicated his workbench inside. Lyra paused at the window, peering through the translucent glass. He worked on a device, his hands moving with precision and purpose. There was focus in his expression, a quiet intensity. He was not just strong or brave, he was clever. Lyra's heart tugged at her. She had read countless reports on humans, studied their biology, their weaknesses, their potential. The council considered them primitive, yet here was proof of something else entirely. Intelligence, courage, and ingenuity all wrapped in a fragile form. It was impossible to look at him and see anything but potential. She lingered long after he had finished his work, finally retreating when the light of the setting suns dimmed. Back at her palace, the familiar corridors felt suffocating. Servants and advisors noticed her distracted air, but no one dared question her directly. She had the rank and beauty to deflect scrutiny, yet inside she was restless. The next day, Lyra returned, this time taking a slightly bolder path. She allowed herself to be seen, lingering in the street where he worked, pretending to browse the market. He noticed her immediately, eyes widening slightly at the unusual color of her hair and the shimmer of her robes, though he did not speak. Instead, he smiled politely and continued his work. Lyra felt a strange thrill. He was aware of her, yet unafraid. She approached him cautiously, hiding her voice behind a soft question about a device he had made. "Excuse me, does this device really measure atmospheric pressure?" she asked, her accent slightly different from the humans around her. He looked up, curious but kind. "Yes," he said simply. "It's a bit crude, but it works. Are you interested in science? He saw patterns, risks, and solutions that she would never have imagined. When she spoke, she did so honestly, without pretense, and he responded with the same openness. As the sun set again, painting the city in warm orange and purple hues, Lyra felt an unfamiliar longing. She wanted to know more, to see him again, and she realized she was beginning to care, not as a noble observing a human, but as one being connecting to another. Yet the shadows of her world were never far behind. The council had grown strict about human interactions. Royals were not allowed to fraternize with humans. It was not just taboo, it was considered dangerous. Humans were unpredictable. They were untested. They could upset the order that had kept the nobility in power for centuries. Lyra knew the risk, yet she could not pull herself away. She visited him in secret for days, each meeting deepening their connection. They shared meals, they shared laughter, and slowly, a fragile trust formed between them. Lyra began to see humans not as weak or inferior, but as capable, clever, and full of unexpected strength. One evening, as they sat on the edge of the city overlooking the glowing clouds below, he spoke quietly. "You're different from the others," he said. "You don't see me as lesser. I see courage, I see life, something your people have that my own often lack. I cannot unsee what I see in you." By the end of that night, Lyra returned to her palace under the cover of darkness. The halls were silent, yet oppressive. She walked through the familiar corridors with a strange new sense of purpose. Something had shifted inside her. She could no longer accept the rules that bound her. Something was awakening, a quiet rebellion of heart and mind. The council would expect her to follow orders, to marry, to obey. But for the first time, Lyra wondered if she could ever obey them again. Her thoughts were no longer on duty or protocol, they were on him. Humans were fragile, yes, but fragile did not mean weak. And as Lyra drifted to sleep in her high chamber, she understood a truth she could not yet voice aloud. She had seen the spark of something extraordinary in humanity, and she would not ignore it, not even if it meant defying every law, every rule, and every expectation. Outside the palace walls, the city continued its hum of life. Humans moved with resilience, creativity, and heart. Somewhere below, Ethan slept, unaware that a noble girl was already thinking of him, already defending him in her mind, and already planning to challenge the world for the sake of a small, courageous human who had captured her attention and her heart. And so, a forbidden bond began to form, fragile yet unyielding, in the shadows of an empire that had long underestimated the strength of humans. The next morning, Lyra awoke with the weight of her secret pressing against her chest. She had seen humans up close, understood their courage, and felt a pull she could not ignore. The rules of the council and the expectations of her family had become distant echoes. Today, she decided she would see him again. She slipped quietly from her room, avoiding the watchful eyes of the palace guards. The halls were silent except for the faint hum of the palace engines. No one questioned her absence. She had grown skilled at appearing obedient while her mind wandered far from the marble corridors. As she left the palace through a hidden side exit, she felt the thrill of freedom. The lower city waited, alive and unpredictable, like a living organism beneath her feet. Ethan was already at work when she arrived, hunched over a mechanical device that glowed softly under the lamplight. He had noticed her arrival but said nothing at first, allowing her to approach on her own terms. Lyra felt her pulse quicken. There was something magnetic about his calm confidence, a quiet strength that did not need to boast. "Good morning," she said softly, careful not to draw the attention of the few humans passing nearby. He looked up, eyebrows raised, a small smile forming on his lips. "You're early," he replied. His voice had the warmth of familiarity, yet it carried no presumption. "Didn't think you'd come back so soon. It could double efficiency without overheating." Where aliens relied on rules, precision, and tradition, humans relied on creativity, adaptability, and intuition. Their minds were flexible in a way that made them unpredictable and powerful. Hours passed quickly. The sky above the lower city shifted from pale orange to deep crimson, and the market buzz quieted as vendors packed up. Yet neither of them noticed. They were absorbed in conversation, ideas bouncing back and forth, bridging the gap between species. Lyra found herself laughing at small jokes, at observations about alien society, and at the clever solutions Ethan suggested. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alive, unbound by protocol or expectation. Finally, Ethan looked up, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know you're not supposed to be here," he said gently. "If someone from the council saw you—" "I understand, but it's dangerous. They don't like humans, and they don't like aliens who spend time with us. A small hovercar had lost control, spinning wildly above the street. People screamed and ran. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed a nearby lever and adjusted the device on his back, sending a pulse to the vehicle's magnetic stabilizers. The car shuddered, tilted, and then steadied. The passengers cheered, unaware of the quiet human who had saved them. Lyra's heart swelled. His courage was not just theoretical. Humans risked themselves for others, not for glory or power. She realized that this quality, this combination of intelligence and bravery, was something the Council would never acknowledge. And yet here it was, undeniable. That evening they walked together through the winding alleys of the lower city. Lanterns glowed softly, casting long shadows on the walls. Lyra felt a strange sense of freedom walking beside him, as if each step away from the palace loosened invisible chains. "Do you ever wonder why humans are treated like this?" she asked quietly. "Why they are considered inferior? They don't follow rules the way others do. Maybe that scares them." "You," one of them hissed, pointing at her. "What are you doing here with a human? And I will not allow anyone to diminish them. And if you do not understand that, then it is your ignorance that is beneath them." Lyra realized that the Council's control depended on fear and submission. Here, in this moment, neither was present. The power of human courage combined with her position as a royal created a force that even the enforcers could not dismiss. After a tense moment, the nobles retreated, muttering threats. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, but her heart was alight with a new fire. She had faced the rules of her society and defied them. She had chosen a human, and in doing so, she had chosen a different path for herself. That night, as they returned to his small home, Ethan looked at her with concern. "Do you realize what you've done? The Council will not forget this. They may try to separate us. And neither am I. We can face them together." The Council's rules were still in place, but she had discovered something stronger, a bond built on trust, courage, and mutual respect. Over the next days, they continued to meet in secret. Lyra learned more about humans, their ability to think quickly, to improvise, to solve problems in ways no alien would consider. Ethan, in turn, learned about alien technology and customs. Together, they combined their knowledge, creating small devices that could protect the lower city from hazards, improve efficiency, and even alert humans to dangers before the Council could intervene. Word of their actions spread quietly. Humans began to look to them as a symbol of hope. Lyra's courage inspired whispers among those who had long felt powerless. The Council noticed patterns of small resistance but could not trace them to a single source. And Lyra knew with a quiet certainty that they were laying the groundwork for something larger. One evening, while repairing a power conduit that had begun to fail, Ethan paused and looked at her. "You know," he said, "you're different from every alien I've ever met. You treat humans like we matter. Most of your kind would never do that." For the first time, he realized that their connection was not merely personal, it was revolutionary. By treating each other as equals, they were challenging centuries of oppression and fear. As night fell over Luminaris, Lyra and Ethan sat on a ledge overlooking the glowing city. The stars above were faint against the city lights, yet they felt infinite. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her choices, the thrill of defiance, and the hope of something greater. The Council could not stop the truth forever. Humans were not weak. They were clever, adaptable, and brave, and Lyra had chosen to stand with one of them, to see the world through human eyes, and to embrace a bond that could change everything. She squeezed Ethan's hand, a silent promise passing between them. No matter the rules, no matter the dangers, they would face whatever came together. And in that quiet moment, the first spark of rebellion, the first glimmer of hope, took root in the heart of the Empire. Lyra knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new risks, and new tests of courage. But tonight, she allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The human beside her was no longer just a fascination. He was her partner, her equal, and her inspiration. And together, they would prove that humans were capable of far more than anyone had dared to imagine. The days following their secret meetings were filled with careful planning and quiet excitement. Lyra and Ethan met in hidden corners of Luminaris, always aware of the Council's spies but never letting fear control them. Their bond had deepened, growing stronger with each shared invention, each conversation about life, and each moment of laughter that echoed softly through the lower city streets. But the Council was not blind. Whispers of a human and a royal scene together traveled quickly through the palace corridors. Rumors spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of elders who valued control above all else. For the first time, Lyra felt the weight of rebellion pressing down, not from within, but from the very society that had nurtured her. Yet she refused to relent. She knew humans were underestimated, but she had seen their courage and she had chosen to trust it. One evening, Lyra arrived at Ethan's small home to find him waiting, a mixture of excitement and concern in his eyes. "Lyra, I think I've discovered something," he said quietly, motioning her to come closer. "What is it?" she asked, leaning over his workbench. He pulled out a small, cylindrical device that hummed faintly. "This is a signal detector. It picks up transmissions from the Council's hidden networks. I've been monitoring their movements, and I've noticed patterns. They're preparing something big. But their patrols are increasing, and there's chatter about tracking humans. They may be trying to control or contain us. It's dangerous, but it's the only place that holds answers." The air smelled of old metal and dust, but Lyra felt a thrill she had never known. This place held secrets the Council had tried to erase. Inside, shelves of ancient devices, holographic maps, and stacks of data crystals stretched endlessly. Ethan handed Lyra a small, glowing crystal. "I found this years ago while exploring the lower vaults," he explained. "It contains records that were hidden from the public, records about humans." Images of humans, older and younger, appeared alongside sequences of DNA, calculations, and notes written in a language Lyra barely recognized. As Lyra studied the projections, a shock ran through her. The records revealed that humans were not naturally inferior. They had been genetically engineered centuries ago by an ancient civilization, designed for adaptability, intelligence, and resilience. Every trait the Council considered weakness was, in fact, a carefully cultivated strength. Humans were capable of surviving in conditions that even aliens could not endure, and their brains were capable of problem-solving in ways the Council had long suppressed. Lyra gasped. They engineered humans, and the Council hid this truth. They feared humans would rise if anyone knew their true potential. "This changes everything," Lyra whispered. "The Council has been lying to everyone. They've kept humans oppressed because they were afraid. I will not stand by while they suppress life and courage. Humans deserve to be seen for what they are, and I will help them be free." She realized that the Council's arrogance had blinded them, and that human ingenuity could overcome even the most rigid rules of alien society. As night fell over the lower city, the two emerged from the vault, careful to remain unseen. The streets were quiet, the glow of lanterns reflecting off the wet pavement. They moved silently, aware that any misstep could alert the Council's patrols. Suddenly, a shadow shifted near a corner. Lyra froze, and Ethan instinctively stepped in front of her. A figure emerged, one of the Council's enforcers, a tall alien with sharp features and piercing eyes. "You are far from your palace, princess," the enforcer said, his voice cold. "And with a human, no less. Do you know the rules you are breaking?" "I know the rules, and I also know the truth. Humans are not inferior. They are clever, brave, and strong. You may fear them, but you cannot deny their potential." "We are not afraid." Lyra's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of defiance. She had chosen a human, and she had chosen to face the Council rather than obey their oppressive laws. "We can't stay here," Ethan said, still catching his breath. "They'll send more enforcers. We show them that humans are capable of more than they think, and we will not be afraid." They learned about advanced problem-solving techniques, human resilience in harsh environments, and innovations that had been deliberately erased from the public record. Lyra began to see humans not as fragile creatures, but as a species with immense untapped power. She shared her knowledge with Ethan, and together they devised plans to use human ingenuity to protect the lower city from hazards, sabotage Council surveillance, and support those who had been oppressed. One evening, while testing a small device that could detect Council patrols, Lyra looked at Ethan with a mixture of pride and admiration. "You see, humans are not weak. They are clever, inventive, and brave. And now I finally understand why I feel the way I do about you." It was trust, respect, and a shared mission to challenge a system that had underestimated humans for centuries. But the Council was relentless. They could not allow a royal to defy tradition, and they could not ignore the potential threat of humans gaining knowledge and power. Reports of unusual activity in the lower city reached the elders, and plans were made to tighten control, increase patrols, and root out the source of the disturbances. Lyra and Ethan knew they were running out of time. They could not remain hidden forever, and they could not fight the council openly without risking their lives. Yet they refused to abandon their mission. Humans deserved recognition, and the truth could not remain buried. One night, as they rested in a hidden alcove, Ethan turned to Lyra. "Do you think the council will ever see humans as equals? We just need to give them a chance, and we need to survive long enough to do it. And we start by showing the people who have been oppressed that they are not powerless, that humans are strong, adaptable, and brave, and that they deserve respect no matter what the council says." They would gather allies, study the council's weaknesses, and spread the truth carefully, without revealing their own identities to those who could betray them. Every step was dangerous, but every step brought them closer to their goal. A world where humans were no longer underestimated. A world where courage and ingenuity mattered more than rank and tradition. As they looked out over the city, the glowing lights reflecting in their eyes, Lyra realized that this was only the beginning. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as fragile and weak. Yet here they were, standing against centuries of control, using intelligence, courage, and determination to carve out their place. And in that moment, Lyra knew one thing for certain: she would never abandon humans. She would fight with them, learn from them, and protect them. For the first time in her life, she felt that she was on the side of truth, justice, and courage. And with Ethan by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges the council would throw at them. The vault, the hidden streets, and the glowing city below were no longer just places to hide. They were the beginning of a movement, a spark that would grow into something greater than either of them could imagine. Humans were underestimated, yes, but now they had allies, knowledge, and courage. And together they would change the fate of the Empire forever. The days that followed were tense and full of careful planning. Lyra and Ethan moved through the lower city like shadows, studying the council's patrols and mapping the streets, tunnels, and hidden alcoves. They were no longer just two individuals in love. They had become strategists, teachers, and organizers. Humans in the lower city had begun to notice small changes: abandoned traps that now protected neighborhoods, alerts warning of patrols, and improvised devices that made daily life safer. Whispers spread quietly, reaching ears both human and alien, of a strange duo working to protect the powerless. Lyra had begun teaching the humans she trusted small lessons in alien technology. She showed them how to repair machines, improvise tools, and even bypass surveillance equipment. At first, they were cautious, wary of drawing attention, but they quickly realized the depth of her knowledge and her trust in them. With Ethan's guidance, humans began to think differently, combining creativity with strategy to solve problems. The council was unaware at first, but soon their patrols intensified. Reports of human gatherings, mysterious devices, and unexplained activity reached the elders. They assumed the unrest came from ordinary humans, not realizing that a royal, Lyra herself, was leading the change. The council dispatched enforcers, elite squads trained to detect and subdue threats, but Lyra and Ethan's precautions kept them one step ahead. One night, as the 3 moons of Earthra rose in the sky, Lyra led a group of humans to repair a damaged transport line that ran above the lower city streets. The rails had been sabotaged by a rival faction, leaving dozens of families stranded. Lyra moved among them with ease, her knowledge of alien technology guiding their hands. Ethan, ever resourceful, created a stabilizing device that allowed them to lift heavy sections of the rails with minimal effort. As they worked, Lyra noticed a small group of enforcers approaching from a side alley. She signaled silently to Ethan, who immediately activated a decoy device, a flickering light and sound emitter designed to confuse and mislead. The enforcers paused, suspicious, and then followed the illusion, leaving the workers undisturbed. Lyra smiled. "Clever humans," she whispered. Ethan laughed softly. "I learned from the best." Every success drew more attention, and the council's efforts to control the lower city became more aggressive. One evening, Lyra and Ethan returned from a supply run to find their meeting point compromised. Surveillance drones hovered silently above, scanning the streets below. Patrols moved quickly, their weapons glinting in the moonlight. "We have to move," Lyra said urgently. "They've found the trail." And every step reminded Lyra that humans were capable of far more than anyone had ever believed. They finally reached a safe rooftop overlooking the city. From there, Lyra could see the scale of what they were accomplishing. Small clusters of humans moved through the streets, fixing damaged structures, warning each other of patrols, and creating networks of communication that even the council could not fully monitor. She realized that the lower city, once disorganized and vulnerable, was becoming resilient, adaptive, and self-sufficient. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've changed them," he said quietly. "They're seeing themselves differently. They're not afraid anymore." Some reached out, offering aid in secret. Tools, information, and safe passage became available, all coordinated through the network Lyra and Ethan were building. It was a movement in its earliest stages, quiet but growing, fueled by human ingenuity and courage. One night, as they planned the next phase, Lyra received a message from a contact among the alien rebels. A noble sympathetic to their cause had provided information about an upcoming council meeting, one that could shift the balance of power if leveraged correctly. "They're meeting to discuss increased restrictions on humans," Lyra said, showing Ethan the decrypted message. "If we act, we could prevent a crackdown and protect many lives. If they catch us, or if we fail, the Council will respond with force, more than they ever have before." Using a combination of human improvisation and Lyra's knowledge of alien technology, they created small devices to interfere with the Council's communications, spread information to the oppressed, and mislead the enforcers. Every device, every action, required precision and creativity, and every human who participated gained confidence in their own abilities. The night of the council meeting arrived. Lyra and Ethan positioned themselves in the shadows near the council building, watching as the enforcers moved in formation. With careful timing, they activated the devices, causing lights to flicker, communications to scramble, and patrols to misdirect. Humans in the streets, alerted by the signals, moved quickly to aid those in danger and protect key locations. Inside the council chambers, confusion spread. Messages from the lower city contradicted reports from the enforcers, leaving the elders uncertain. Lyra watched from her vantage point, a mixture of anxiety and pride in her chest. The humans were acting with intelligence, courage, and coordination, proving that they were capable of more than the council had ever imagined. Ethan leaned close, whispering, "They're responding exactly as we hoped. They're adapting. They're thinking. And they are showing the council that humans are not to be underestimated." Humans celebrated quietly in the streets, aware that their success was fragile but meaningful. Lyra and Ethan watched from a rooftop, their hands brushing together. "This is only the beginning," Lyra said softly. "The council will not ignore us forever, but tonight humans have shown their strength. Tonight we have changed the game. We've done more than survive. We've shown them that humans are clever, brave, and capable, and we've inspired others to believe it too. And with the right guidance, with courage and intelligence, they could challenge the council's dominance in ways the elders had never imagined." In the following days, Lyra and Ethan continued to expand their network. They trained more humans, shared knowledge, and implemented strategies that allowed neighborhoods to defend themselves, communicate more effectively, and solve problems without relying on the council. Each small success reinforced their belief in human potential and strengthened their bond. Lyra's position as a noble gave them an unexpected advantage. She could access information, tools, and locations that were off-limits to humans, while Ethan's ingenuity ensured that every plan was executed with precision and adaptability. Together, they became a team that combined strategy, courage, and intellect, a force the council could not fully anticipate. One evening, after a long day of organizing and planning, Lyra and Ethan sat together on a rooftop, looking out over the city. The streets below were quiet, but the signs of progress were evident. Lights glowed in hidden workshops, humans moved confidently through the alleys, and small devices silently monitored patrols. Lyra turned to Ethan, her violet eyes reflecting both pride and determination. "Do you see it? Humans are changing. They are no longer afraid to act, to think, to challenge the old rules, and it is just the beginning. They believe in themselves because you believe in them." The council would continue to resist, and the risks would only grow, but she knew that humans had the strength, the courage, and the ingenuity to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And in that quiet moment, she realized that she had chosen the right path, not just for love, but for truth, justice, and the future of a species that had long been underestimated. Humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. They were more than anyone had ever believed, and together they would rise. The council could no longer ignore the changes in the lower city. Every attempt to control the humans had failed. The streets were organized, neighborhoods defended themselves, and news of a mysterious noble working with humans spread like wildfire. Rumors of Lyra and Ethan circulated, whispered in the corridors of power, growing into fear among the elders. The council convened an emergency session, their voices sharp and tense as they debated how to respond to the rising influence of the lower city. Lyra and Ethan watched from a hidden rooftop, the city stretching below them in a patchwork of light and shadow. The humans had grown bold, more confident, and more inventive with each passing day. The council's failure to control them only strengthened their resolve. Lyra knew that the time had come for a decisive move, a bold action that could shift the balance of power and reveal the truth to the entire empire. "We need to act," Lyra said, her violet eyes fixed on the council chambers in the distance. "If we wait, they will tighten control, and it may be too late to protect the humans. We have to show them what humans can do and why they deserve recognition. Humans have strength, yes, but we need their intelligence and creativity to succeed." Lyra guided them, showing them ways to exploit weaknesses in the council's systems, while Ethan focused on innovation, building tools and devices that were simple but highly effective. Word spread quietly to sympathetic aliens. Some nobles who opposed the council joined their efforts, providing intelligence, equipment, and safe passages. Together, the coalition grew, a hidden network of humans and aliens working toward a common goal. The movement was careful, precise, and coordinated, designed to maximize impact while minimizing risk. Finally, the night arrived. The council was meeting to discuss new measures to suppress the lower city, unaware that the very people they sought to control were now prepared. Lyra and Ethan positioned themselves in the shadows near the council chambers, their hearts beating in sync with the tension that filled the city. Humans moved silently through hidden tunnels, setting devices that would interfere with the council's communications and alerts. When the council session began, confusion quickly spread. Lights flickered, communications scrambled, and surveillance monitors went dark. The enforcers, trained to respond to threats, were disoriented and delayed. Outside the chambers, humans moved swiftly, guiding citizens to safety, preventing damage, and maintaining order while the council struggled to understand the disruption. Lyra and Ethan watched carefully, coordinating every step. Their strategy relied on human ingenuity, quick thinking, adaptability, and creativity. Devices that seemed simple, mirrors, light reflectors, small drones, caused confusion and misdirection, delaying the council's response and giving the coalition the advantage. Inside the council chambers, the elders were furious. Reports from enforcers contradicted what they observed in the city, leaving them frustrated and uncertain. Lyra and Ethan's careful planning had turned the council's own systems against them, exposing their lack of understanding of human potential. "Who is responsible for this?" one elder demanded, his voice sharp with fear. "This cannot be ordinary humans. Someone is leading them. Humans are not weak, they're brilliant." "You cannot control humans by fear," Lyra declared. "They are not inferior, they are capable. They are intelligent, brave, and resourceful. For centuries, you have underestimated them, and for centuries, you have hidden the truth about their potential. This contains records the council has tried to hide. Humans were designed to be adaptable, intelligent, and resilient. You have suppressed this knowledge to maintain power, but now the truth cannot be hidden. Not through violence, but through courage, intelligence, and action, and we will not be silenced. Humans were not weak. They were engineered for survival and adaptability, capable of leadership, creativity, and resilience beyond the council's understanding." One elder spoke, his voice trembling. "If this is true, humans have been underestimated all along, but why reveal it now? Humans deserve recognition, respect, and freedom. They have proven their strength in every challenge they faced, and they will continue to do so. The Empire must acknowledge them as equals or risk being left behind." The council had misjudged them, and the evidence could not be ignored. Outside, the city watched as the council chambers broadcasted the revelation across the Empire. Citizens, both human and alien, witnessed the truth. Humans had risen, not through force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and perseverance. Their actions in the lower city, their careful planning, and their determination had demonstrated their worth beyond doubt. Lyra and Ethan stood together, watching the city light up with hope and excitement. The humans cheered, their voices carrying through the streets as they realized they had been seen for the first time. Aliens sympathetic to their cause celebrated in silence, knowing that a shift in power and perception had begun. The council, forced to acknowledge the truth, had no choice but to respond. Policies were revised, restrictions lifted, and recognition of human capability was granted. The Empire began to see humans not as inferior beings, but as valuable allies and capable citizens. The hierarchy that had long oppressed them was changing, and the world had been reshaped by courage, intelligence, and truth. Lyra turned to Ethan, her hand brushing against his. "We did it," she whispered, awe and relief in her voice. Ethan smiled, a quiet pride shining in his eyes. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. Humans have shown what they can do, but now it's up to everyone to build a future that values courage, intelligence, and heart above rank and fear." She had seen the underestimated rise, proving that courage and intelligence could challenge even centuries of oppression. The Empire was no longer the same. Humans had proven themselves, and the world would never forget. The lessons learned, the bonds formed, and the courage displayed would shape generations to come. As dawn broke over Luminaris, the city glowed with new energy. Humans and sympathetic aliens moved together, sharing knowledge, repairing damages, and celebrating the first steps toward equality. Lyra and Ethan watched from the highest terrace, the wind brushing against their faces. "You know," Lyra said softly, "humans don't mate with royals because they don't need permission to love, to lead, or to rise. They make their own path, and they prove themselves every step of the way. And together, we will continue to prove it." The Council's old rules could no longer bind them. The truth had been revealed, the underestimated had risen, and the world would never see humans the same way again. And in the quiet aftermath of victory, Lyra knew that this was more than love or rebellion. It was the beginning of a future built on equality, courage, and the undeniable strength of humanity. The lower city, once hidden and overlooked, had become the heart of a movement. Humans had proven themselves through creativity, intelligence, and bravery. They had faced oppression and fear, and they had risen above it. Lyra and Ethan had been the spark, but the fire belonged to everyone who dared to believe in themselves. As the sun rose higher, painting the city in golden light, the message was clear. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were equals, innovators, and heroes, and their story, once hidden, would now inspire generations to come. Lyra and Ethan stood together, looking toward the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. The Empire had been shaken, old hierarchies challenged, and the underestimated had triumphed. Humans had risen, and with them, hope, courage, and a brighter future for all.